If you're ready to experience more peace and joy in your life, if you want to feel more comfortable in your own skin, and if you're ready to discover and expand on your energetic gifts and personal power, you're in the right place. So here's your host, Kelle Sparta.
Welcome back to Spirit Guides. I'm your host, Kelle Sparta, transformational shaman and spiritual coach. And so today we are on Ascend Fridays, which means that we are proving that the magic works. And today we are going to be doing a SEER reading, which is Spiritual Evolution Energy Review. Blah, 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 blah. This is why we call it SEER. It's because it's too many words. Anyway, and this is a chakra reading is basically what this is. So I read all of the chakras in your system and the aura, and that's what we're going to be doing today. And then we go through the process and see what shows up. And if there's a quick fix, I give it in the moment. And if there isn't, we talk about it at the end and we identify the themes and what's the order of operations for clearing the blocks and what ones do you have to worry about, which ones do you not have to worry about because they're just a function of something else, all of these things. And so today Susan's coming for her reading. So welcome, Susan.
Hi.
Hi. So Susan's actually been through one of my programs a few years back, but when it was a different name altogether. Same program. It's the Welcome to the Woo program now.
It was wonderful.
Fantastic. And so, we haven't actually spoken in we've back and forth on social media a few times in the intervening years, but I don't think we've actually spoken in a few years. So this will be interesting to get in and see where you are. We did talk in advance of the recording, and we're going to be looking at the source of some stuckness for her. And we're also going to be looking at general overview and trying to see where things are going. So we, in the course of the conversation, I learned that her mom passed in February. And so I'm anticipating we'll find some grief in the fourth chakra, but we'll see what happens. And so, there's some stuff coming up and we're going to work our way through it and we'll see what the reading has to tell you. So before I get started, yes, that's the word I was looking for. Before I get started, if you guys are loving the podcast, please subscribe, please rate, please share. This is how I get out and seen in the world. And I really appreciate it whenever anybody shares my podcast with other people because I work really hard at it and I appreciate the support. So, and many of you have already done that. And I just want to say thank you so much. That has been super helpful. You guys rock. Okay. Now, with that said, let's get on to the reading. So, do I have your permission, Susan, to enter your energy field for the purposes of this reading?
Yes.
Okay, give me 1 second and I'll be right there. Okay, so before I enter your aura, the first thing I see is I see a bunch of like dark energies surrounding you. Don't panic. It's not like demons or anything. You're fine. But it feels more like dark thought forms. And so it feels like negative thought forms, right? So it feels like there's like all these, it's got everything from, sort of the energy of I suck to the energy of woe is me. So, that sort of energy just sort of surrounding you. And so, the encouragement would be, hold on, let me just check. You're living in your mom's house, right?
No, I've got a place of my own.
You got a place of your own. Okay. So then this is.
I was living with her for a while though.
Okay. Yeah. So I was just checking to see if it was yours or if it was hers, because sometimes if it's surrounding you, it might have just been in the space that you were in, right? So then that implies that this is yours, unless you have a roommate.
Nope, just the puppy.
Other than Apple. Okay. So then this is yours. And so what I'm going to say is because it's surrounding you and not in your aura, right? And I'll see what I see when I get into the aura itself. But typically thoughts live inside the aura, right? If they're in the environment, it's because they've been entrenched for so long that they've expanded into the physical space, right? And so Smudging would be a great idea, clear the energy, right? But it's also indicative of repetitive thought patterns. And so you've got well-worn neuronal pathways that are just taking you down that path over and over again. And so this is the one place in spiritual work where, well, there's a couple places, but there aren't discipline is not something I usually tag people on in spiritual work. Okay. I talk to people about resistance. I talk to people about commitment. I talk to people about, a lot of other things, but discipline is not usually one of them, except when it comes to negative thoughts. When you are running these same thoughts, these same stories over and over again in your head, that's when they start to get entrenched in your body. Okay. And we had talked about you being stuck, right? And so the stuckness comes from engaging those thoughts because they pull your energy field down and they hold you in place, right? It's very hard to move when you've got all of this angst and upset running through your beingness. And I know that when you have a lot of things to be angsty and upset about, there's a lot of like, but I have a right to my upset and I have a right to my anger. And why isn't it working for me? And, all of this comes up. It's this righteousness. Righteousness is a victim state. And so, because it's like, comes out of a space of, I am being wronged in some way. And when it's coming about, not against a person, but against sort of the universe, not like taking care of you sort of thing, you are entrenching yourself in a belief structure that the universe will not take care of you. And in fighting and being upset about it, you end up with that feeding back to you. And you end up staying in the same place, repeating the same issues, right? And I totally understand that. I've been there. It is a very tough place to be. I have a lot of compassion for it. And at the same time, the key is to lean into the universe and how it has taken care of you, right? So, you haven't been homeless, you haven't gone hungry, you haven't, all of these things. And while you may, designate some things saying, oh, well, yeah, but really in actuality, where, there's been a safety net, right? And so, the process of getting out of this is literally about the process of switching from a blame mentality with the universe to a gratitude mentality with the universe. And so it's about refocusing yourself, because trauma teaches us to focus on what could go wrong, what can go wrong, what will go wrong, and to try and keep ourselves safe. And we ignore all the stuff that works and all the stuff that's right, because that's just the default. Okay, that's fine. I don't have to worry about that because that's not a danger. I'm going to focus on the thing over here that sucks because that's the thing that I have to defend against, right? And so it makes sense that that's where we end up, but it is not a healthy space for manifesting from, okay? So you have to consciously shift that dynamic to be focused more on the positives and on the gratitude side and on the I can trust the universe, right? The universe brings me what I need.
I have been able to do that. It's just hard to make it stick for long periods of time.
Right. And that's where the discipline comes in, right? That's the challenge. This is where I said it's like the only place that I say discipline is necessary, because discipline is necessary because those pathways have been worn and worn and worn for your entire freaking life, right? And you're creating new ones. And so you have to wear the paths down for the new ones as much as the old ones are worn down before you will default to the new ones. And so that's why discipline is necessary. You've got to just drag yourself back in. So if you find yourself having a pity party, and trust me, I have had my pity parties. When you find yourself having a pity party, you're like, okay, I'm going to give myself another 2 hours for this, and then I'm going to be done, and we're not going to do it anymore. If you need the woe is me, the wang, on temper tantrum on the floor, do it in big way, and then let it go and move on. Okay. But the key is the biggest challenge is recognizing when you do it, when you switch from the positives to the negatives, and then having the discipline to switch back, because there is something very seductive about the negative mindset. It's like, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and look at that. And you're like, pile it all up. It's like all of the ways in which this sucks, right? All of the ways in which I've been screwed over or whatever it is, right? You know, we've all had these things. And for, you know, it's a process of stopping the roll that you get on, right? And sometimes the way to stop the roll, if you're having a hard time stepping out of it, is to take the roll to the extreme, right? It's like, I didn't have this, you know, I don't have this, and I don't have that, and you just take it to the point with, and the world will explode, right? You know, you take it to the point where it's ridiculous so that you can stop the process, right? So the other thing that could help is if you're in a spin, is to walk through a doorway as you change your thought process, because there's a neurolinguistic anchor in everybody's beingness that says that when we walk through a doorway, our state changes because we go from inside to outside or outside to inside. And, you know, from one room to another, one environment to another, a doorway is a hardwired neurolinguistic anchor for humans. And so if you walk through a door as you're making the shift in your mindset, it will help you to hold the new mindset. Okay. And especially if you put yourself in physical motion, because one of the things that happens when you get into the negative role is that your adrenaline starts pumping. And if you put yourself in physical motion, like you go for a walk, you dance, you do something, right? You get to work off the adrenaline, and that will stop the roll as well, because the adrenaline pumps the roll, right? Because you're like, and so your body goes into, okay, where's the thought process that goes with, right? And that's what happens. So when you can put yourself in physical motion, if you've gotten on a roll with it, you can work that off in a way that makes it easier to transition.
Which is why I took a walk before we sat down together.
There you go. See, you had a thought of it already. Look at you ahead of the game, rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
Go you. All right. So let me see if there's anything else outside of the aura that they want me to talk about. No. Okay. So let's come into the aura. So if you've got a shield up, please allow me through. Yeah, you weren't kidding about being stuck, were you? So the energy in the aura is just like still. And it's not still in a peaceful way, it's still in a nothing's moving way. Right? So it's not stagnant. Because there's nothing, you know, stagnancy implies that things are growing in it and, you know, it's getting icky, right? There's no stagnancy. It's just a non-movement, but not from a place of peace. It's just, let me see what's the underpinning here. Hold on. Because I feel like I'm also underwater as I come in here. I feel like it's underwater. You know what this is? And we talked about this a little before we got on the call. It was just, it feels like the energy of giving up, right? It feels like I've just stopped trying. Like, fuck it, you know? And and again, it's so let's talk about the difference between giving up and surrender, because giving up is, fuck it, I can't figure it out. I give up, right? Yeah. Surrender is, I recognize that I don't have all the information. I can't see what I need to do or where I need to go, but I trust the universe to bring me to the right place. And so I'm just going to relax and allow. Okay. And because you've got such a challenged experience of trusting in the universe, you're having a hard time getting the giving up to the surrender. Right? Because you've done the,
That's another thing I can do piecemeal.
Yeah. Right. And then again is part of that discipline thing. If you start to do it a little bit more structurally, right? So if you have a practice of 3 times a day sitting down and doing gratitudes and writing them down for the days that you can't remember them, right? So write down a gratitude and put it in a box, just like your Go Me box from the program, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So put a single one, like get a bunch of index cards, write a gratitude on each card and stick them in a box so that if you can't think of any, you can borrow some from your past self and say, thank you, past self, right?
I remember that. It's around here somewhere.
There you go. So this is part of the process for you. I think that the process of surrender, it feels like it's the right thing for you to be doing right now, but you're feeling stuck because you're in giving up instead of in surrender. So when you do this gratitude process and you really start to engage and run those new pathways, you'll be better off. I do recommend that you smudge before you try and start this because it's in your environment. Okay. I might even open the windows. I know it's cold there right now, but but I might even open the windows just to get some fresh air through and to, start things afresh, right? Doesn't have to be for a long time. Just needs to get you some fresh air. So, okay. And then anything else in the aura here? Hold on. No. Okay. So I'm going to come into the 7th chakra first. I go from the top down. Let me check your energy flow. Okay. Okay, so where's the leak? So there's got to be a leak. 3rd chakra. Okay. Okay, so here's what's going on. I checked your root and your crown for energy flow, and your energy flow looks great on both, except for the crown chakra. When the energy is trying to come back up and out, it stops right around the head area, right? And so what that means is that you're pulling that energy in and you won't let it back out because it's leaking from somewhere else. Okay, because you need that extra energy. So you're not letting it out, even though it's necessary to allow it to flow freely and clear the stuff out and whatever. And so the 3rd chakra is where the energy leak is happening. So remind me to look at that when we get to the 3rd chakra. Okay. All right. Root chakra looks amazeballs. Looks really good. So, okay, let's see here. What else is going on here? That's very strange. So how can we have that at the same time? So what I'm seeing is a diverted flow in your aura. So where the crown energy is coming in and diverting into your aura instead of coming into your crown chakra. I see, because normally those don't exist at the same time where it's actually coming in and diverting at the same time. So we don't want that to happen because that will eventually, well, half of it's going into your crown. So it's probably not going to be significantly bad to your health. If it was completely diverting, it can create neurological issues, but it's only partially diverting. So that may in fact be why the energy isn't coming out, is because half of it's not going into your main system, it's going into the aura instead. So, and they're telling me that the 3rd chakra was related, which means that the reason why is a 3rd chakra issue, which is a personal power issue. So let me check here what's going on with that. That's a 6th chakra though. Why is it a 3rd chakra? Identity. Okay. All right. Got it. So what they're telling me is that you have a fear of your own power that is causing you to prevent yourself from channeling as much energy as you could. And that's why it's diverting, because it's there, even if you don't want to acknowledge it, right? So there's only so much you're allowing through. And part of that, the reason they said 3rd chakra is because it's related to your identity and how you see yourself, right? And that's in the 3rd chakra. So fear of your own power is in the 6th chakra. And that's also related to the universe and how your relationship with the universe right now, because we are the universe and the universe is us. And therefore, when we're mad at the universe, we're mad at ourselves. When we don't trust the universe, we don't trust ourselves. It's all of that, right? And so when we have that combination of factors, those of us who are ethical, we'll limit our own powers because we can't be trusted, right? And so we won't allow ourselves to have the full access to our power because we don't trust ourselves, because we don't trust the universe, right? So it's a complicated web, but that's how it works. Okay. And we'll talk about that more in the sixth chakra. But that's what's causing the diverted flow. And so dealing with the fear of your power and your relationship with the universe will fix that. So it's not something that you have to worry about fixing on your own. It'll automatically adjust when you adjust all of those beliefs. Okay. All right. So what else we have? Okay. When I tap into your masculine energy, what I get is exhaustion. And so, your masculine is the energy that allows you to do structured things, right? Allows you to stay focused, do things on task, make to-do lists and then complete them and things like that, right? Structure, format, function. And when I tap into that, the thought of even doing anything related to that is like, oh my God, right? It's got this sort of, oh, I'm so tired energy associated with it, right? And so what that says to me is you're burned out. You push too hard for too long and you're fried. Okay. And so the key to transcending burnout is to nurture and nourish yourself. Right. And we talked about some health issues that you had earlier in the year, and those were related to nurturance. And that's what this is relating to as well. Right. So when we're looking at this, what we need to do for you, and you did this assignment in the program. I don't know if you still have your results of it, but you did this assignment, which is, make a list of things that nourish you, right? And then make sure you do one every day.
Yeah, I remember that. I'll have to go back and look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you can just do the assignment again, because sometimes our nourishments change, right? But yeah, for you, it's definitely important to start doing things that nourish you and to recognize when you've hit your limit. Right? So we have a mindset that says, I should be able to X, Y, Z. And the should is irrelevant to the spoons. Okay. So spoons, if you guys don't know this, spoons are a measurement of mental ability, right? Or energy. How much energy do you have to get things done for the day? It's used in the mental health world. It's like I've got 27 spoons and I have 50 spoons worth of stuff to do. And so at 27 spoons, I'm done, but I feel like I didn't get it done, right? Or I have 3 spoons and 27 things to do, right? So some days you have 3 spoons, some days you have 50. You need to acknowledge how many spoons you actually have as opposed to how many you want to have, right? And that's the difference. So for a lot of us who grew up in environments where we were constantly on duty, the idea that we might have less spoons than things to do is foreign, right? We're like, what do you mean? I have the right to stop when I'm tired. What is this, right? So, the key is to start to pay attention to when you are tired, when you are done, right? So, I've just come back from 2 weeks on vacation. I'm super excited to be back. And I am finding out that, some days I have enough spoons to work, 6 or 8 hours. And other days I have enough spoons to do one thing.
And I'm finding that. I'm finding that I did a lot of sleeping in that period that I told you that I just stopped doing everything.
Right.
And I did nothing but sleep for the most part all the way through, the end of Christmas. And I just feel like I'm starting to get the energy back. And yet, I'm still needing to drop off it, in the afternoons.
Yes. And I'm going to say that this is a classic case of people get burned out and then they do what you did. They take significant time and then they go, okay, I'm better now. No. That's not how it works. When you start to feel like you have the energy again, that's when you're only beginning to recover. Okay. Everything else before that was taking all of the energy that you used up and overextended yourself by and just replenishing it. You have not addressed the burnout yet. Okay. The burnout is once you start to feel like you can actually do something again, now you can begin to address the burnout. Okay. So, and that's the problem, is that we think, oh, I've got energy now, I will just do it. It's like, no, you got to address the burnout. You got to do the things that nourish you, do the things that support you, do the things that make you happy. You know, for me, that's getting out of the house instead of sitting in front of the computer. It's, you know, being with friends. For other people, being with friends costs you spoons, right? I'm an extrovert. So for me, being out with friends is a nurturance. My husband is an introvert. Being out of the house costs him spoons. Okay. So you just got to know who you are and what that's about, right? So getting a massage, or, you know, reading a good book, you know, not for learning, but for pleasure, right? Because the learning is another doing thing. And when we're nurturing, we're not trying to do with our heads, right? Nurturing is a physically based thing. So reading a book with a good cup of tea or something, and curled up with your puppy, and, you know, really enjoying it, and doing it only until you're done with it, right? Not pushing, not expanding, just being like, oh, this feels great. Okay, maybe I'll make myself some good food. Or maybe I don't feel like making food. Maybe I will go into the freezer and find food that I made before. Or maybe I will order some food or whatever, right? So you want to feel into what you feel called to, what feels good for you. This is not a thought-based process. It's a feeling-based process. And so it's a, what do I feel inspired to do? And if the answer is nothing, then we do nothing, right? It's like, I don't really feel inspired by anything. Now, you know, sometimes we don't give ourselves enough stuff to look at. So this is where the making a list of the things that nourish you are useful, right? Because we go vapor lock, when our brains vapor lock, when we ask ourselves the question of what do I feel inspired to do? And we just go, oh, because our brains vapor lock. So, but yeah, that sort of thing. Okay. All right. So, all right. That's that. Let me look and see if there's anything else in here that's relevant. So I feel like mind on overdrive is a default pattern for you, but you're not using it as much as usual right now. So it's like when you go into your head, you go into that zit, 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 zit thing. But when you're not in your head, you're actually not utilizing it, which is really good because it means you're breaking the pattern. Okay.
I'm trying to spend more time out of my head. And that, again, that's another thing that it works for a bit. And then I'm back on, you know, on the spin, and then it works a bit longer, and then I'm back on the spin. So it's back and forth.
So you may find, as you sit with this and you become more conscious to this pattern for yourself, it feels like, based on what you were saying, what I was seeing is that when you're pushing too hard in the mind on overdrive pattern, when you're using your head and you're pushing past your exhaustion limit, that's when you trip into the negative thinking, because that's associated with that. So when you start to, this is the thing with those of us who are really in our heads a lot, and especially if you're super smart, and I know you are, when people are super smart and they're in their heads a lot, they get all excited about their own thoughts. And they're like, oh, and this and that. And the brain goes, all excited. And then suddenly you're like, I'm so tired, right? But you're still excited. So you don't want to be tired. So you're like, screw it, I'm going to keep going. And then all those negative thoughts start coming in because you've pushed past your tired point. And so the key is to be able to rein in the excitement and be like, okay, we can be excited about this tomorrow. Let's just take a break. Let's go for a walk. Let's put it down, because brain no good for body right now, right? So yeah. So that sort of thing. Okay. So pay attention to that pattern for yourself. All right, let's take a look here. Hold on. Anything else? No, that's everything in this chakra. Let's come down to the third eye. So I'm going to check your transmitter and receiver. Transmitter's really solid, but slows down when it comes back. This again is going to be related to the fear of your own power thing. So let me look at the receiver in general. Hold on. No. Okay. That's a hell no. All right. So what's happening here is that you're solid. I mean, the energy going out to get the information. So the transmitter is, I ask a question and I try to get an answer, right? That's the transmitter. The receiver is, I pick up energy from the world around me and just accept whatever is coming in, right? I'm not looking for anything. It's just what's showing up, right? The receiver has a big old hell to the no on the thing. So you've got a full block on that one. And that feels like it is an overwhelm response at the moment. So it feels like because the burnout has been so significant, because you've had so much loss, because there's been so much angst and upset, that you're just like, I can't take in anymore. Leave me alone. Right? That's what it feels like. Okay. So as you work the burnout, that should clear of its own accord. Okay. Now the transmitter receiving end, because it goes out and then comes back, right? So it goes out with massive amounts of power and then it comes back with less power. It is getting in because you're consciously choosing to look for it, but it's getting in with a lot less power than it has available to it. So what that means is that you're going to be getting less detailed information than you could be getting because you're not receiving the fullness of the energy that you have coming back. And this feels like it's going to be related to the fear of your own power piece. So, it's like, well, if I know at this level of depth, well, then I have to admit that I actually know this stuff and I'm good at it. And oh crap. And what does that mean? And what sort of responsibility does that mean? And what do I have to do? And who do I have to tell? And right. All of that. And so again, this goes back to personal power issues and trust in the universe piece and acknowledging. So this is the other piece, is that when you are not receiving all of the information because you're afraid of what the responsibilities are, right? Then, the first thing you have to do is give yourself permission to not say a freaking word to anybody about anything. It's entirely up to you as to whether or not you want to share something, and there's no requirement. Okay. Rule number 1. Okay. And then, because everybody's the thing that every new psychic student says is, what if I see somebody dying? What do I do? Right. And the answer is whatever you feel called to do. You're under no obligation. And if you choose not to say anything, then that was a predetermined choice that, so there probably means that you weren't going to be able to affect the outcome anyway. Right. So sometimes we just get told things to prepare ourselves, not to make a difference, right? For somebody else, right? So these sorts of things. Okay. All right, let's look at the fear of your own power piece in here. Yeah, this feels like for some people, fear of your own power is about either having been killed in past lives for your gifts, or it's about having abused your power as early on in your process and doing penance for it by not giving yourself access to it later and whatever. But that is not the case for you. For you, this is entirely about the responsibility question and about your connection to the universe and feeling like you can't trust yourself with the power because you don't trust the universe, and you are the universe and the universe is you, and therefore blah, blah, you don't trust yourself, that sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah, this feels like that is the only piece for you. Everything else is not relevant for you. So again, I'm going to go back to the more you can trust the universe, the more you're going to find trust in yourself at the same time, right? And so I know I'm banging a horse on this one, but it's your theme. So I told you in the beginning that before we got on the call, that the themes become evident as we go through. So this is yours.
Sometimes you just have to go over it again and again and again and again.
Sometimes, and sometimes you have to hear it differently. So
Yeah.
I say it a little bit differently each time. So let me see if there's anything else in this chakra. No. Okay. All right. So 5th chakra. Let me just check in for the personal, for self-expression. That always comes as a physical response. Hold on. Okay. So the self-expression piece that showed up is like this big old wide opening of the mouth, which feels like a scream, right? And it feels like a scream, but while there was a lot of energy to the opening of the mouth, there was not a lot of energy coming out of the mouth. And so it's like a silent scream is the energy that I'm getting for your self-expression. Does that feel resonant?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and again, this goes back to the mindset, right? It's when you have a silent scream, there's a sense of impotency to that, right? It's like, I would scream, but there's really no even point of screaming. I am just well past the point of expecting that help is going to come. That's what a silent scream is about, right? And again, that goes back to the trust in the universe piece, right? But it's an expression of impotency in your own life. Okay. And so it's a good thing that you gave up trying stuff several months ago, because this sense of impotency. Okay, so how do I say this? So there's impotency and then there's helplessness. Okay. And what I'm feeling is impotency, but not helplessness, which is good. Because when you go into helplessness goes into hopelessness, and that becomes a negative spiral that is very difficult to pull out of. Okay. That's when you need to go see a therapist and, get some help. But you are in impotency, but not helplessness, not hopelessness, right? There's sadness and grief associated with it, but you're still at the place where you trust your own volition, that you have the ability to have volition, right? To be able to do stuff. Even if you're choosing not to right now because you're like, I don't fucking know what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm just going to leave it be, right? It's like, right? But you trust in your ability that once the path becomes clear, that you will then take the step, right? And that's different, right? So yes. You're while it may suck to be here, it's stages ahead of the other thing, right? So the silent scream is I could see it brought up some emotion for you. And so that might be something to give yourself space to let that energy out, right? To release it, because it's holding in your body right now. And that energy is part of the belief structure of things not working out for you. Okay. So you've held a belief for a long time that things don't work out for you. That's been a recurring theme. And so I would highly recommend that you question that assumption. Okay. And in fact, rewrite it. Because that is one of the biggest things that is holding you in place, is this belief structure. That and the not trusting the universe. Okay. Okay. And okay, so I can hear people in the audience asking questions, so I'm going to answer that for you too. They're saying, well, but what if things don't work out? Right? So the question is, what if things don't work out? And how do I debunk that if that's true? Right? And it's like, well, the question you have to ask is not whether or not it's true. The question you have to ask is, did I create this? Right? Because if I created it through my belief structure, because we know when we have a belief structure that says things don't work out for me, then the things that would work out for you, we just ignore. Right? We go, oh, that's not for me, because my belief structure says things don't work out. So I'm going to pick the things that reinforce that. Right? And so once you choose that as a belief pattern, then you reinforce it by making the choices that reinforce that belief structure. Okay. So like, I know that from my business, when I would make decisions in my business from a place of exhaustion or overwhelm, that I would inevitably hire people who sucked to try and fix the problems, right? And it was a total waste of money. And it built a belief structure that said that nothing works for me, right? Because I would make the decisions from a place of exhaustion and overwhelm, right? And burnout. And so I learned not to make decisions from that place, right? And then things would work out better, right? So, this is what I'm saying is take a look at what are your patterns around that. Okay.
Okay.
So,
Because it's another one of those where it works for a little bit and then it doesn't. And then it works for a little bit and then it doesn't.
right. Same idea with the spinning mind, right? So look at where your pattern is. Are you in exhaustion and overwhelm? Because when we go into exhaustion and overwhelm, our inner child gets into the driver's seat of our life and they don't know how to drive. They don't know how to drive. They're trying, but their feet don't even reach the pedals, right? And they're going vroom, 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 but they're not actually getting anywhere because they haven't put the car in gear, right? But they're trying their damnedest, right? And so that's the key is you've got to be able to pull them out of the driver's seat and that's the differential. So I am going to bet good money that if you sit down and you do the math on this, you're going to find that this pattern emerges when you are in burnout and exhaustion, when your inner child is in the driver's seat. Okay. So it's important to get back into your body because that's when you're up in your head for too long. Right? Okay. Now, and by the way, when you've really pushed it, you get that sort of buzzy feeling in your energy field. If you push past and you're working on your reserves, you get buzz, 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 buzz in your energy field. It sounds like this energy feeling and almost sometimes it feels like bugs crawling on your skin sort of energy, right? But sometimes it's just womp, 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 womp in your energy field in an unpleasant way, right? That's another indicator that you've pushed too far. Okay. All right. So I take a look here. Okay. So I feel like the people pleasing communication has gone. That used to be there, but it's not there anymore. You've got 0 fucks to give anymore about that. Okay. So
yeah.
However, I do feel like there's some energy around dependence and asking for permission. And it's not. And the thing about it that's interesting is that I don't feel like there's any person it goes to. Typically, when we have this pattern, we put it to our parents, right? Or to our partner. I feel like you have the energy in your field, but you don't have anybody you give it to, right? So it's like, well, is this the right thing to do? I don't know if it's the right thing to do. What do you think? Tell me what you think. And is it okay if I do this? I'm not really sure if it's okay if I do this. I feel like the energy is there, but you don't actually ask it of anybody, right? But it's still present in your field. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does.
So that is a child pattern. Okay. So when that pattern shows up for you, your inner child is driving the bus. They're in the driver's seat. Okay. Because it's an inner pattern for you now. It used to be externalized, but now it's an inner pattern. And so it's just going to be an indicator for you of your need to pull the child out of the driver's seat. Okay. Which means that you're overdone. Okay. It's an indicator that you're overdone. And the overwhelm and lack of clarity comes from your inner child being in the driver's seat because they don't know what the hell they're doing. And they don't know how to do it. And so they're overwhelmed and they don't know what they're supposed to do. That's overwhelm and lack of clarity. Bang, right there. Okay. Mm-hmm. So when these thought patterns show up of, is it okay? Am I okay? Is this, what should I do? Asking in that energy, that's when you're in your inner child. Okay. All right. Let me see. Oh, okay. So I don't see blocks in the other two things that I was looking for, but I do see really good flow through the eloquence and fluid thought energy. So have you been writing recently?
I've been writing right along. I haven't been doing a whole lot though.
Okay. Well, the energy is there for it. There's a lot of energy flowing through there that would give you the energy to do this. And so once you have worked your way through the other pieces, that area of your work is going to expand out and really blossom because there's so much energy flowing through that. Okay. So that's there waiting. It's waiting to be activated. Okay. All right. So let's come down into the heart chakra. All right. So the first thing that showed up was this dagger in the back of your heart. And that usually, what's that?
Again.
Again? Where did we have this before?
Not with you, but I've had that when I've done work with a couple of other people. It just keeps showing up.
Okay. So oftentimes the dagger in the back of the heart is indicative of feeling betrayed, which, you know, given your relationship with the universe, makes sense. But if you're seeing this with a bunch of different people and they're looking at, are they doing healing work or are they doing this sort of work?
I've had it pulled out twice.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Then that's okay. That's what I thought, because when I looked at it, it was, you know, a sense of betrayal. And so that's not something, so you can pull a dagger out when something is a past life memory of how you got killed, right? It's like you can pull that out of the energy field and that'll stay gone, right? But the dagger is a representation of feeling betrayed in this life. It's not a past life memory of a injury, right? So it won't go away until the sense of betrayal goes away, right? And so the betrayal piece here again is the I should have had this experience. I should have this experience. I should, and I don't, right? So in this case, because it's about the universe, it is a function of your shoulding on the universe. Okay. So, and that's also a function of putting the universe in the position of parent instead of partner. Okay. So when we put the universe in a position of parent, then we treat it, then we become a child in relation to it. Okay. And what that means is we're like, oh, take care of me. Right. And we cease to have volition in our own lives. And we're just like, just do me. Right. It's the I don't want to be responsible for anything energy. Right. I'm just a little kid. You can take care of me. Right. It's that energy where we're handing over the responsibility for our well-being to the universe. Okay. Now, the problem with that is that you are the universe and the universe is you. And when you abdicate responsibility to the universe, then you've abdicated responsibility in your own life too, right? Because you're just abdicating, right? So when you take responsibility for your life and you treat the universe as a partner rather than a parent, and you go, okay, so I have given you this information in the past. I have put this belief structure in place that nothing works out for me, nothing is working, blah, blah, blah. And therefore you have delivered me that. Thank you for being my partner. We're going to change the model now, right?
Right.
We're going to start from a new thing, but I'm going to acknowledge that you've been a great partner in bringing me what I have chosen to believe. And go you, well done. Let's change the script, right? And so when you do that, the betrayal piece goes away because you recognize that you created the thought patterns that created your experience, and therefore nothing betrayed you. You just made choices that were unconscious as opposed to conscious, right? So I don't want you to go, oh, I betrayed myself. Let me beat myself up. No, that defeats the purpose. That's more of the same, right? And so instead you need to say, oh, look, I was making unconscious choices. Okay, let's make some conscious ones, right? We know this works. Let's shift the script. We're not going to focus on how the past sucked or how we fucked it up or anything like that. We're going to focus on how do we change it, right? Because anything else perpetuates the problem. When we judge ourselves, we are engaging in a resistance to change. because it keeps us in the same place while we beat ourselves up. Right? Make sense? Okay. All right. So that's that. Let's go in. Okay. So we had talked about the grieving process and how I expected to find grief in here. And there is some, but not nearly as much as I thought based on our conversation from before we got on the call. Okay. I think a lot of what you're interpreting as grief is that stillness that we talked about in your aura, that not having inspiration to move and not feeling like there's anything to do and, you know, all of that. That is actually not grief. That is a function of the giving up and the you know, the universe relationship and things like that. There is grief in here and it can be moved. It's not actually super dense. It's okay. It's I don't feel like it's out of whack with where you are. Okay. And the sound healing for clearing grief that we talked about can help you with that. But I would say maybe half of what you're experiencing as grief, quote unquote, is not. It's actually that other energy we talked about. Okay. So it can move without you having to do more grieving, right? Okay. Let's see. What else do we have? Okay. So this feeling like the universe is a dangerous place or not helpful, not supportive, not safe space, right? Has caused you to pull back from giving love out into the world. And you're in this sort of like protective mode, right? Let me see how the receiving is doing. Yeah, not receiving either. Okay. Apple is kind of the exception. But even, you know, even your relationship to him is limited. The love energy is limited. You're not letting the full love flow. There's a shutdown of your heart chakra that has happened. And I'm going to give you an assignment for this. Okay. Anytime somebody loves you and you don't receive it, that energy hangs out in your energy field forever. Okay. It just sits there waiting to be received. All that love just pulls up and waits to be received. And so what I want you to do is I want you to sit down and, you know, just do this for a few minutes a day because it can be overwhelming you're not going to get through this all at once. Okay. So, you know, do this every few days, right? And sit down for, you know, 5 to 10 minutes and go through your life from the beginning of your life to now. And I want you to go back and I want you to think about every person in your life who's ever really loved you. So maybe a friend, might be a friend's parent, might be your parent, might be a teacher, you know, a babysitter, whatever, right? And I want you to go back and I want you to consciously receive all the love that they had to give to you. And don't worry about whether you received it before or not, okay? Just don't worry about that. Just receive all the love that they had to give to you. Okay? And you're just going to go through that process and work your way all the way through. And that's going to give you the opportunity to practice receiving. Because once you open to receiving, the giving will start again. Okay? You want to stay with the receiving piece because that's the piece where we go, well, I'm not getting any. Why should I give any? Right? I only have so much love to give because I'm so empty. Right? And so when you start to feel overflowing with love, then you have more to give and therefore it'll open up. Okay? So that's going to be how you're going to address that issue. And the good thing about doing it in the past, so when you get to a little more to the present, you may find that you have some like around not wanting to receive some of it. If you have some relationships in your life where the love is transactional, right? Where it's like, I'll give you this much love if you give me that much love, and it's a trade, right? When you hit those, or if you hit those relationships, The key is to not accept the obligation with the love. Love is unconditional. Obligations are made up. Okay. Okay. Let's see. That's it for the heart chakra. Let's come into the third chakra. So we talked about the identity piece being an issue. Let me take a look at your identity. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So what I'm seeing is you as a little girl sitting on the floor in the corner in tears, and you as the mama bear pissed off and angry in front of her. Okay. So you have a dual identity going on, right? And, full protective mode in the mama bear dynamic, right? And then the little girl is when this is you in two different states of being, right? So when you are feeling like you've got the energy to do it, you're like, I'm gonna do it, right? And when you don't, you collapse into I can't, right? And the world is out to get me, and I think I'll eat some worms, right? It's just like there's that energy of up and down, right? When you step into the fullness of you, it tends to be out of a place of anger and upset. It tends to be out of a place of not anger and upset at the world so much as in protection of the self that was collapsed. Okay, so it's like, ain't nothing getting through to me. Bring it. Whatever the hell you have, I will take it. I am expert at that, right? It's that sort of energy, which as you can feel the energy of that, it's still in a victim state, right? You're still at the, I will not be a victim even though I'm feeling victimized, right? It's that energy, right? So the key is to moving, transcending the energy of the victim and stepping into that more empowered state. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. All right. And again, the gratitude and the trust in the universe and all of that will help. Same stuff, different dynamic, but it impacts in the same way.
So those things that will clear up as I go through all of these other things.
Yes. Yeah. As you do the other things, the identity piece is going to shift. And that's why it showed up in the crown chakra issues, was because the identity is holding this state of victimness at the moment. And so that identity of like, or right, that up or down is all in a state of victimness, right? And so that energy flow in the crown chakra that we were talking about before, with the energy not coming fully out and with the other pieces and the diversion of the energy so that you can't pull all your full energy in, and the all of that is playing into this as well. Okay. All right. Let me see your inner child. So your inner child, she's a little back and forth on this. So in one moment I see her. No, okay. So they're not back and forth. It's just sort of merged, but they feel like different energies, but they're happening at the same time. So what I see is that she's dirty, but she's in a pretty outfit, but she's gotten it all dirty, and she's got crayons in her hands, and she's laughing and running down the hallway, but she's got tears that she was crying just a minute before that are still on her face. And you see what I'm saying about back and forth, right? So the energy is there. She's like, I'm playing, I'm having a good time, but I'm very sad, but I'm having a good time, but I'm very sad. But, nobody's playing with me, but I'm going to have a good time with my crayons, right? It's that, but she's dirty because nobody's taking care of her, right? So it feels like there's no parent energy taking care of her, right? Because otherwise she would be clean, right? She had a frilly dress. So there was a time in which she was being cared for and provided with, you know, nice clothes and nice shoes and whatever, but she has been ignored for a while, is what I'm getting. Okay, so it feels like you did some work on your inner child for a while and then you wandered off. Does that sound about right?
Yes.
Okay. So that's what I'm seeing. Okay. And so, you know, the invitation there would be to sit down and spend some time with her, right? You know, sit down with her and wash her face and dry her tears and, you know, spend time with her because she's lonely. Okay. All right. Let's see what else is in here. So there's a story around not good enough, and there's also one around too big, too much. Okay, so the too big, too much is typically I can't. So for those of us from our generation, the, you know, kids should be seen and not heard and preferably not heard, right? There's that when we got too loud, when we got too effusive, too ebullient, we were told, settle down, be quiet, you're bothering me, don't bother people, you know, that sort of energy. And that results in a don't be too big or too much because that's not okay sort of energy.
Well, I know I still have that.
Yes. Yeah. And that's actually impacting the energy flow as well and the fear of your own power as well. Because when you step fully into your power, you're a lot. And that's not bad. But in your head, it is, right? Because being a powerful personality can be intimidating to others, especially if we don't have our energy fields pulled in as empaths, right? That's going back to that boundaries for empaths thing, right? For those of you listening, if you don't know what that is, go to the website, hit the button on the blog, and you'll get a free e-course on boundaries for empaths. It's on the right-hand side. Anyway, but that goes back to how you're holding your energy field for that, okay? And then for the intimidation factor, to tie that back in, right? So if your energy field is way out and you're fully in your power and other people don't have, you know, they don't have their energy field solid, then you can feel very overwhelming to them. And then you feel that and then you dial back because you're like, whoa, you know, I don't want to be intimidating. But then that reinforces the story of too big, too much, right? And you know, all of the things. This is how that flies. So as you lean into your trust in the universe, trust in yourself, step into your power, this one will take care of itself. You may have to do a little bit of work around it as you step into your power more significantly. There might be can I do this? Right? There might be that. And you just have to be like, yes, it's okay. We're not a kid anymore. It's okay. I know how to hold my energy field. It's okay. Right? You know, you might have to just sort of talk yourself through it a couple of times, but generally this won't be a big one. Okay. The not good enough one, we did a fair amount of work on this in the first program that you did with me.
Yes.
Yeah. And so you can go back and take a look at that. It doesn't feel like it's like overwhelming anymore. It's still there, but I think it's more a function of the things don't work out for me now than a inherent underpinning belief. It's not a, so when you don't receive love, you often lean into the belief that you're unlovable, even though you're choosing not to receive the love. We create an internal belief that's a function of that because we don't connect the two. This feels similar in that things haven't been working out for you because of the belief structure that things don't work out for me. And so because they haven't been working out, there's a feeling of not good enough that gets created from that. It's like, well, I must not be good enough if if things aren't working out for me, right? And so it's a sub-belief of the results of the first belief. So as you change that belief, it's not going to go away by itself, but it's going to be the same level of how much work you have to do on it as the too big, too much one, which is you're going to have to just sort of talk yourself through it and say, no, things are working out. It's okay. I am good enough. It's okay. Right. It's going to be a cheerleader sort of thing rather than a dig in and do deep work sort of thing. Make sense? Okay. All right. Yeah. So there's also some not wanted energy in here. not welcome, not wanted. And that's again a function of the, you know, the challenge with the job search and the other stuff that's going on for you. And that is, again, it's a reinforcement of a story that, or a creation and then reinforcement of a story based on the belief structure. So when you clear out that things don't work out for me thing, it'll be the same thing there, right? So same thing there. You'll just have to be like, no, 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 people do want me. Look, I'm in demand, right? So you just have to cheerlead your way out of that one. Okay. All right. Well, that's good though, because that means that the underpinning belief structures have cleared, and these are just temporary belief structures. So go you,
Good.
right? Yeah. Okay. Anything else in this chakra? Let me look. No. Okay. Second chakra. Let's see what we got. Okay. Not a lot of energy in the second chakra. I feel like part of this is because of the burnout, because creativity and burnout don't go together, right? So it feels like it's like there is some spin to the energy, but it's like limping along. It's like and around and around, right? It's there, the energy's there, the chakra's open. It's just there's not a lot of juice in it, and that's because you're tired, right? You're burnt. So as you address the burnout, this is gonna address some of that stuff. Let me see what else is in here, if anything. Okay. So there's some blame going on in here and pointing at yourself. Okay. It's, you know, why didn't you do this better? Why aren't you blah, 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 blah. It's that self-judgment, that self-critic, right?
Mm.
So this is again going to be a discipline thing. This is a well-worn neuronal pathway, right? So, but you're going to have to redirect it and be like, you know what? This is not helpful. And so sometimes you can just re-enroll the person that's saying that in your head and say, look, you know, I get that you're trying to help me be a better person, but how about instead you support me in remembering to do my meditation on how to receive love and help me to remember to do my gratitude practice and all of this. I would like you to do that for me instead of this, because this is not helping, right? And so sometimes you can re-enroll that part and let it do a different role. Okay. Let me see what else. So there's an episode of Spirit Sherpa that's called The Victim and the Misery Box. And I would encourage you to go and listen to that. Because when I look at your attachments, it's not huge. I want to be really clear, it's not huge, but it is something you should be conscious of. Okay. So the energy of the victim in the misery box. So there's seductiveness to the energy of victimization. It's like you fall in love with it, right? And that is in this chakra. It's not a lot, right? It's just shades of it in there, but it's enough that I want you to be conscious of the pattern. Okay. It feels like it's a pattern that's ready to leave, but it's good for you to know it's there because it's in the neuronal pathways, right? Okay. All right. Let's see. Yeah, everything else looks good. All right, so let's come down into the first chakra. We already know you've got good energy flow. So let's look at the feminine. Okay, so the feminine is about being embodied. It's about being in your body wisdom rather than in your head wisdom, right? And so, you know, part of this is going to be challenged because that intuition receiver, that sixth chakra receiver is being closed over. And so part of your body wisdom comes through that connection to that intuitive self. And so that part of that is going to create that challenge. And so as you clear that through the things we've talked about already, then the body wisdom will come more in online. Part of it is you go into your brain and you go onto into mind on overdrive, and that disconnects you from your body. And so as you learn to not engage that so heavily, you will find that your embodiment practice improves. And then part of it is just becoming present to your body more often. So, the invitation here would be to, when you eat your meals, don't be doing anything else. Pay attention to every bite that comes into your mouth. Be aware of the sight and the smell and the taste and the texture, and just be in your body as you are eating it. And, as you swallow and feel the food go down, and be with it and be like, okay, and just slow down so you don't wolf your food, right? And so you're going to just eat one bite at a time and very mindfully eat that bite. And then take a break for it to settle in your belly and ask yourself if you're full, right? And then the next bite, and so on. So that's another embodiment practice that can be super helpful for clearing this. Okay. All right. And touching your skin is another good embodiment practice, right? Just run your hands along your skin. Just feel what it feels like. Feel what your hand feels and feel what your arm feels. Separate awarenesses, right? But just being able to touch your body and become aware of it. So, sex and masturbation are other good embodiment practices. So there's that as well, because that puts you in your body. Okay, next. What else? Hold on. Okay, so there's some fear around safety and security going on in here, which is pretty common in most of the people I read. And based on, what we've been talking about, and this is, remember, it's not necessarily about like being afraid of physical attack. It can be, I don't have enough money, or, oh, I can't pay my bills, or, oh, like if you have bad food allergies, I can't eat something, I'm afraid I can't get good food, or, whatever, right? Or I'm afraid that my illness is going to kill me, or whatever. There's any number of things that could create a fear around safety and security here. And in this case, all of the things we've talked about is going to help, but I'm also going to suggest that you go on and do a Google search for a vagus nerve reset, VAGUS, nerve reset. Because when we've had this pattern in place for a long time, we can just be stuck in that energy. And that energy is a physical energy that is a function of us being in our parasympathetic versus sympathetic nervous system, right? And so you want to bring yourself back to a state of rest and digest sort of energy, right? That's sort of, I don't have to be on call hypervigilant all the time, right? And so a vagus nerve reset will help a lot with that. Okay, what else? Feel like your community has gotten very, very small, like almost non-existent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be part of your self-care, is to go out and find some new friends. And that means you got to leave your house. So, I'm going to encourage you to go out and do that, go to different events, take a class every now and again, whatever, right? But show up and start to meet some new people and make some new friends, because you need that emotional support, because your mom was sort of the last bastion of that, right? And so you've been doing this.
I'm not getting it from her family, so.
Right. And you're not going to. So this is,
right.
It's your job to create a family of choice at this point. And so I highly recommend going out and finding some people. Now, what I am going to say is I would wait until you do some of the work around the universe and trusting the universe and undoing that story if things don't work out for you. Because if you don't, and you start to try and find friends, you're going to find people who are going to support those stories. And you don't want those people. Okay.
Right.
So do the inner work first, and then go and start finding some friends. Okay. So give yourself 6 months. Okay. And as you start to evolve this stuff and you start to get into your body, you're going to find yourself inspired to do things. Don't question them. You know, if you're walking down the street and you want to turn right when you plan to turn left, do it, because that's your body starting to talk to you. And it'll take you someplace and bring you somewhere that will give you an experience you need to have, or have you meet somebody you need to meet, that sort of thing. Okay. All right. All right. I'm going to check your manifestation bubble. All right. We know that that's not working very well right now, so I'm not going to tell you that. But I'm going to look at it once you deal with the things that we've talked about. And let's see where it goes there. Once we've cleared all of the stuff that we talked about today, how does it look? Oh, that looks amazeballs. Yeah, that opens wide open. All right. So your manifestations take off once you've dealt with these issues. Okay. So light at the end of the tunnel, right?
That sounds good.
Not an oncoming train, right? Okay. Because things work out for you, right? Yeah. So yeah, the manifestation looks amazing once you dealt with these issues. Okay. So any questions about anything I've talked about?
Let's see. I've been trying to take notes.
You will get a recording and a transcript of this later, so don't panic.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm just really happy that we did this, because one of the things I wanted to do was to check where I was in this process. It's been 6 years since I did the program with you, so it's been a while. And the other thing that I wanted to know is, how, all the different pieces that are coming together, and what it was that I needed to relearn and to rehear and find out what's new that needs to be put into that equation.
Yeah.
And try to figure out why things were happening just over and over and over again. It's like a lot of the things that we talked about, I thought I was a little further along with than I actually am.
Yeah.
And so that was a little bit of a surprise to me on some level, but also that, there were some things that weren't a problem, which also surprised me. So
yeah. Well, and here's the thing, right? Because sometimes we think, oh, I did so much work on this. Why am I not done with it? But it's a spiral, right? And some issues are spokes on that spiral, and we just visit them over and over again because they're core to our learning for this life, right? And so we just, each time though, you get it a little closer to the center, right? And so each time it gives you a new piece of information about yourself, and eventually you start off with, oh shit, didn't we do this before? And eventually you end up with, hello, old friend, what do you have to teach me today? Right? And it's like, it's the sooner you can get to the hello, old friend, the less in resistance you'll be about the work, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm noticing, that as I come upon those things, like, oh, I've been this way before.
Right. Like, oh, I know this.
What's new? Yeah.
So, and the way that things manifest, it can oftentimes feel very confusing, because we think it's one thing, but it's actually something else. So we do all this work on the one thing, and then it doesn't work, and we can't figure out why, because it wasn't the thing that was the problem in the first place. And that's where something like this is helpful, right?
Right. That was another reason to look at some blocks and see what exactly was going on, in terms of moving forward.
Yeah. So you feel like you have a grip on where you need to go and what you need to do now?
I think I'm at the bottom of the stairs there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know it's a lot. With this process is like, I mean, we've been on the phone or been on the call for, almost 2 hours, and half an hour of which was us talking in the beginning. But, an hour and a half read, there's a massive amount of information that you get.
Yeah.
And this is why I'm like, yeah, let me give you the transcript. Let me give you the recording, listen to it 4 or 5 times. And then in a few months, listen to it again. And in a few months, listen to it again. Because people swear to me that things that show up in the 8th or 9th or 10th listen that they've never heard before. So they're like, you never said that. I'm like, yeah, I did. I promise I don't edit them. But yeah, it's just you weren't ready to hear it at the time, right? Or it was just too much input and you're like, I forgot that one piece, right? Whatever. So yeah, it's helpful to re-listen for that reason.
Right.
So anything else you'd like to add?
Not at the moment. I think I'm okay.
Okay. Awesome. So that's what we have for this week. Thanks for staying to the end, you guys. And remember that what you focus on expands. What you intend is what you create. So choose wisely.
So that's it for today's episode of Spirit Guides Podcast. Head on over to iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen and subscribe to the show. Every week, one lucky listener who subscribes and posts a review on iTunes will be entered into a drawing for a $10,000 value grand prize and a private reading with Kelle Sparta herself. Be sure to head on over to spiritguidespodcast.com and pick up a free copy of Kelle's gift and join us on the next episode.